Today we are going to be talking about primary and secondary sources of the ancient Mayans. So again, it's very important to continuously remember that we're talking about the ancient Mayan people, not the Mayan people that live today. Today I'm going to mention some things about the sacrifice of humans, and it's really important that we don't create stereotypes about everyday people that live today in Guatemala and the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico who are Mayan, based on their ancestors, because that culture is obviously very different, just like our ancestors' culture would be very different than ours. So, thinking about primary sources, you're going to be watching videos on Discovery. This actually is part of one big video, so you'll click on each one. You'll maybe have to sign in and then watch the video. And then you're going to write the big idea. So in 1 to 2 complete sentences, that means not just Chichen Itza, the Temple of Kukulkan. It's what about Chichen Itza? What about this pyramid that I keep mentioning, that the video keeps mentioning? What is their main idea that they're trying to teach you? Keep in mind, the primary sources that you're looking at are what they're talking about in the video. So for example, the architecture that they're talking about could be considered a primary source because it was built at that time and can give us clues about the time and how they lived. Anything where they talk about glyphs, again, that's a primary source. It's the things that they're talking about that they are studying. Secondary sources is the video, right? The people that are talking about the primary sources were not there at the time. They're using their perspectives and their science to study the Mayans, and they have really, really interesting perspectives and really important perspectives. Very well could be completely true. But it is important to remember that they were an ancient people. We cannot possibly know everything. And this is one thing I want you to keep in mind, and this is why I kept my little square up here, because I wanted to show you this. So this is the one thing I can actually only do at home and not at school, because I probably wouldn't bring my Mayan replica knife to school. So this is actually made of obsidian, which, fun fact, is not anywhere in the Mexican part of the Yucatan Peninsula because there are no volcanoes there. Obsidian is made from the lava volcanoes. I keep looking at myself. What's cool about this is this shows that the Mayans traded, because they had this in the Mexican part of, well, today's Mexican part of where the Mayans lived, because in Guatemala there were volcanoes, so they did have obsidian. So the cities in Guatemala traded with the cities in the parts in Mexico, which, keep in mind, those cities were very, very different. All the Mayan people were very different and had their own languages and cultures. So what was interesting, when I was there, we had different tour guides. So I love taking tours. Obviously, I'm interested in this kind of stuff. So took very different tours, different perspectives, right? Got to have all the different perspectives. And what kept coming up that I found so interesting is that, I had one tour guide who was a Mayan, modern day Mayan person, and he had studied archaeology. Another one who was not Mayan, but he was an archaeologist. And another one who was not an archaeologist, but he had studied archaeology. And what kept coming up that surprised me is they kept saying the Mayans did not practice human sacrifice, at least in the way that you might hear. The idea was that instead of, consistently killing people to make a ritual to the gods, they would be like maybe cutting people's lips. So the rulers would actually cut their own lips to offer their blood to the gods, because that was part of their culture, part of their religion at the time, with obsidian. That's why I'm holding this. So that's very different than, just blatantly murdering people, which, is pretty agreed upon that likely did happen. But a lot of people will say, well, it was mainly their enemies. They didn't just kill their own people. And that's kind of something that is misunderstood, potentially, if that is the case. And the reason people say that is described is because the Spanish told that tale and wanted to say that that was what happened and that people were murdering so that they could justify their brutal actions towards the Mayans, which is thinking back to what Columbus said, the Taínos were cannibals, that they ate each other, which we know now is a lie, but he did that to justify his actions. So I'm not an archaeologist. I did not study these specific materials, so these are just looking. I just want you to recognize that when we're talking about something as ancient as the ancient Mayan people, it's very important to keep in mind that we can't know everything. We don't have, so many of their books were destroyed by the Spanish. So much of their cities have been lost. So we can only really make theories. We can't know for sure. So that's really important to keep in mind. You are only going to do 5 today. So only these 5. Then you're going to complete it tomorrow for the other ones. So you're going to use the same document. Don't turn it in today. Turn it in tomorrow.